we're going to be talking about how to improve your artwork with better shadows. We're going to spice up this mech. We're going to make it look even nicer. Starting from the top, shading is a nice way to describe the shape of your object. So it's not only there to describe the light, it's also there to describe the shape of the object. So for example, a circle would have a rounded shadow, and let's say that the light is coming from our top right. I'd say these are the most absolute, the most polar opposite shapes, overlapping with the next part, hard and soft edges. With something like a spear, it's very smooth, so I used a smoother brush, like an airbrush, to describe that it's softly hugging the shape of the spear. Something like the cube, you can see that there's hard defined faces, and the shading really describes their surfaces. The way I like to think of shading, it's kind of a spectrum. Everything is kind of like an in-between of a spear and a cube, with the spear being roundest, and then the cube being the sharpest. Soft is perfect for soft transitions, and hard is for sharp turns. And so if you want an in-between where it's kind of like a round bevel, by simply using the airbrush, you see that these corners look a lot more rounded just by making that softer. It's finally time to talk about some examples here. So starting with shape, this is one of my favorite examples that I did, and I really want to segment each of them. And I guess I could talk about hard and soft edges as well, because you can see that with these, I'm really describing the shape of each surface. And like I said, everything is either a spear or a cube. Everything's like kind of an in-between. That's how I like to look at it. So with the calibarn, there's like a lot of hard edges. If you look at the knee part, it's easy to tell which side kind of transitions to like a different shape. So you probably heard of the saying, paint like a sculptor. In my imagination, it looked like this. Maybe I'll add like a bevel. It's pretty much like that. I started off of a cube, like imagining it, and then afterwards I kind of just added some shadows, just like that. The hard and soft edges, they also have a double purpose. The edges can describe the shape, but also they could describe the intensity of the lighting. So if I do a hard shadow like this one, this tells me that it's a really intense light casting the shadow, because you can see that there's like a defined shadow. Either something huge is looming over this cube for some reason and is casting that shadow, or the light is so intense, it's like so close right here. And then for like a soft shadow, say like this one, I'd say that the light isn't intense, the light is pretty far away. Maybe it's something like the sun. So yeah, that's another purpose of hard and soft edges. And yeah, it's just a basic mix of all of those techniques. Last but not least is contrast. So when I say high contrast, that would mean that the light and the dark have a huge difference. So I'm doing it in black and white right now because it's much simpler to explain, but any color works as long as the value is there. So you can see that this is pretty high contrast. So if I sample it, if you guys take a look at my color wheel, if you take a look at the dots, this is the shadow, and then this is the light. So it's a huge gap in between. And with low contrast, as the name implies, there will be a low difference between the shadow and the light. So this is low contrast with like brighter colors, but also low contrast can also happen with dark colors. So you can see that with low contrast, if you look at the color wheel again, there's not much of a difference, right? Not much movement. But then if you compare it to high contrast, with the shadow and the light, big jump between the two. And you could barely even tell that these are shaded. With high contrast, if I zoom out, you can see that high contrast attracts a lot more attention compared to low contrast right there. Before I move on, actually, I wanted to talk about color. I'm using black and white to describe contrast, the difference between light. But also, you gotta be careful with color, because if you take a look at this, right, if I color pick it, if you look at the dot, and if you look at the blue, you can see that it says it's the exact same level of brightness, but if I run it through the color filter, and then I fill it with white, you can see that there's a big difference. You can see that the red is actually darker than the blue. So if I turn it on and off, like that. So yeah, I really suggest this method, because if you use the slider, like the hue saturation slider, it's not the same. So it just changes the value, and it'll say that it looks the same, but in reality, they're different. Each color has an inherent brightness and darkness. It's called value. And then this one, I like this artwork that I made for the contrast. For parts where I wanted to put a lot of detail, I made it low contrast. even though it has a lot of detail, I don't want it to be the main center of the artwork. It could really help you direct where to look. The weapons are pretty detailed. They have a lot of shadow and like detail that I could describe. At the very background, a lot of detail. But thanks to contrast, I was able to put all that without it being distracting. These three things right here, shape, hard and soft edges, and contrast. These will let you texture pretty much like anything. These are like the basics. I wanted to talk about these because these are the context that you need to understand for this stuff. But let me see if there are some questions. How do you know what color to use? What color I use is based on contrast. So for example, I could just use multiply. I pick my colors based on the value and how satisfying it is, because technically, look, I could use blue, I could use any sort of shadow, really. As long as the contrast and the values are right, that's what really matters to me, and you can make any color work. Videos like these wouldn't be possible without our awesome patrons and YouTube members who help our mission of making arts education free and accessible for everyone. Become a member today and unlock cool perks like exclusive chats with our creators, access to class recordings, and critiques from instructors. And now, it's finally time to fix this drawing up. First thing that I'll do is decide the shadows. I'm thinking of the shape of the object. So I want to make sure that I perfectly describe it. And the torso, like I said, is pretty rounded, right? So I'm gonna add a little bit of shadow on here. And by the way, when you're adding shadow, work from lightest to darkest, build it up. High contrast attracts a lot of attention. It really will be distracting if you don't do it right. So you can see now, I'm slowly building up my shadows here, building up the contrast as well. So yeah, when you're blocking out your shadows, I'm working on the big shapes. So you don't see me doing this. I'm not going down here and like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna shade this part under the neck, or shading this crevice right here. I'm looking at the big picture first before I start doing that stuff, because realistically, this is how people will look at your artwork. When they look at your artwork, they're not going to be looking at like this, like zoomed all the way in. And yeah, if we take a little zoom out here, here's the comparison. With like a simple multiply layer, it adds a lot. It already makes it feel more alive, more 3D. My lighting situation, it's not too dynamic, honestly. I just want to, make it more rendered. I guess if I had to imagine it, it's just a basic light coming from like the top. Actually, I'll add like a background color. Adding a background color is actually pretty important, because even if it's a flat color like this one, it really changes a lot about the way you pick your colors. Yeah, this is pretty much how every drawing starts for me. Start off with the big shapes. So metal tends to be high contrast because of how shiny it is. Yeah, it reflects a lot of shadows and light. And I want to tell you guys, I use multiply for the shadows, right? And the lighting, it's honestly like a free-for-all, because I don't really look at the correct quote-unquote layer to use. What matters to me is the outcome. So for example, I could totally use an overlay layer if I like the effect that it's making, and say I want like an orange shine, it does the job, right? It makes it shinier and stuff, but me, I like to use glow dodge. Glow dodge is my favorite. But yeah, basically what matters more is the outcome of your artwork and not which layer you use. But yeah, here's the comparison now. So here's a before and after. So yeah, you can see that just by setting up with simple multiply and glow dodge, just adding like the base stuff, really describe it. Describe how the lighting is, how the lighting goes. Finally, you can see that I'm starting to zoom in now, and I'm adding the darker shadows. Yeah, I think I'm gonna merge it all now. Again, I'm just merging it all together because it's a personal preference. And I'm just using the color picker really, and the basic brush. If you're wondering what brush I'm using, it's a default brush. So my brush, you can see it's not blending like that. But my blending brush, like this, it's kind of softer and it like spreads the color, as you can see. Yeah. And then this is my favorite part, honestly, of coloring, is when I've combined all the layers. And yeah, if you're doing this method, by the way, I'm only color picking. I'm not introducing new colors, because when I did multiply, I already introduced my new colors. It becomes a little bit harder to balance if you introduce new colors, but you totally could. Like, it's not like impossible, but it'll definitely make your decisions harder if you do. So like we talked about earlier, right? Everything is either a spear or a cube. I think this one's kind of like a spear. I feel like this is like a nice chromy metal. So now I'm adding more contrast to it, making it darker. Then if I zoom out, look at that. It's nice and kind of steel looking. Oh, and here's another important thing actually about shading. So shade in the direction of the shape. So you can see here, it goes like this. And yeah, while I'm doing this, I'm considering the shape. So I imagine this chin piece, kind of rounded. Yeah, here's a before and after, by the way. Before and then after. So I'm kind of like just defining the shape. When people say they don't want to draw mechs, you should try it. It's fun. It's actually more fun than you think because it practices a really good skill, which you use all the time anyway, which is shape. There you go. So I made sure that the visor is the shiniest part. Yeah, and I guess to talk about contrast a little bit again, there is some detail to be had here, but it's not the focus, so I'm not going to add any highlights. I'm pretty sure every software has this, but there's a color picker that lets you pick the colors as you see them, the display color, or the actual color from the layer. Because you know how multiply, I'll show you the difference. If I pick it, you can see I'm picking up the color that makes the shadow. But if I do obtain from display, so it just picks the color as it is, so you can see that it doesn't make the same shadow because it's a different color. I guess so far, here's a comparison again from like before and after. Yeah, real glow up. Oh, this is one of the fun parts actually. I just thought of something. So you see how it's round? Paint like a sculptor. Look at that. I'm gonna like, I could totally do this. Just make it like more cube-like. But I don't know, it doesn't fit the aesthetic anymore. And honestly, I could do the same for this. Just make it like boom. Boom. Like that. I feel like it'd be much nicer if it was more geometric, but I think that takes too much time. Here's like the overlay, like before and after. Here it is side to side. There you go. How did I learn it? Yeah, I just talked about it earlier. It's just those 3 steps. It comes from a combination of copying some artwork, referencing, and then kind of cherry picking what I learned from it. I guess you could say it's like the art style video. How to copy an art style without stealing. That was the title. And I literally just used one brush, by the way. I don't know, I didn't feel the need to use my other brushes. Yeah, just remember that those are the steps that I take into account. While shading, I take into account the shape, take into account hard and soft edges, you know, to describe said shape, and then the contrast. Because regardless of how detailed you want your artwork to be, you will always think about that. And yeah, it is kind of nicer without the ground. I'll just get rid of it. Can't really do too much with it. But yeah, again, it's just all about the basics. Remember the shape, remember to make sure to describe it, because that's what shading is for. And you could use your hard and soft edges, use your contrast to really draw the eye to where you want it to be. Join a virtual art class to learn live from our professional artists. Get creative assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork. Start today and level up your practice. If you learned something new, please like and share this video with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe. Here's a couple other videos you could check out next.